Hi, and welcome to our session. We're very glad you're here. We're here to talk about Colorado's multi-tiered system of supports and the new school Fidelity Tool, measuring integrated systems within a multi-tiered framework. My name is Lynne DeSousa, and I am joined with Erin and Milcah, and we all work for the Colorado Department of Education, and we are COMTSS specialists. Today, the objectives for our session are to define what COMTSS is and its 5 components, share the technical assistance structure that we use to support and scale up COMTSS in our state, and introduce the COMTSS School Fidelity Tool and review next steps. Colorado Multi-Tiered System of Supports is a prevention-based framework of team-driven database problem solving to improve outcomes for every student through family, school, and community partnerships, comprehensive screening and assessment system, and a layered continuum of evidence-based practices applied at the classroom, school, district, region, and state level. This bell curve is showing how success leads to more success and failure leads to more failure. COMTSS is the opposite of the wait to fail model. Because it is a prevention-based framework, challenges and barriers are predicted and addressed. This graphic demonstrates just how powerful that can be. If we anticipate achievement challenges and set up our system for success, students will be on the path of achieving our intended outcomes. If we use data to determine which students are not responding successfully with these universal supports and supplement those supports early, the likelihood they can turn from the failure snowball and move towards success increases. COMTSS uses implementation science to create one integrated system that consists of 5 essential components. They are team-driven shared leadership, database problem solving and decision making, layered continuum of evidence-based supports, practices, instruction, and interventions, comprehensive screening and assessment system, and family, school, and community partnerships. These components are the foundation and the underlying philosophy of COMTSS practice profiles. The practice profiles were developed and specify exemplary strategies that region, district, and school implementation teams can use to support effective and sustainable use of the COMTSS framework as intended. As you will see later in this presentation, the school level practice profiles were the basis for developing school fidelity tools to further define the standards for what COMTSS looks like in practice at the school level. I want to show you a little bit how you can find those practice profiles. If you click on the bottom link or go to cde.state.co.us/MTSS, it will take you to a screen that looks like this. And if you scroll to the bottom of the screen, you will see all 5 of our components. By clicking on any one of these components, it will take you directly to those practice profiles. And if you scroll down even further, you will see the regional level practice profile. Colorado Multi-Tiered System of Supports, through the State Personnel Development Grant, or SPDIG as we affectionately call it, we were awarded that in 2021, and we are supporting partner regions and districts through a mutual selection process. The majority of our funds are used to provide direct and ongoing training and technical assistance to coordinators and implementation teams. The focus of this technical assistance is to increase equitable academic, behavioral outcomes, and improve access to whole child supports. The goals are twofold. First, to increase the region and the district's level capacity and infrastructure. And the second is to increase school fidelity of COMTSS to support students' academic, behavioral, and social emotional outcomes. I want to show you a little bit of what our teaming structure looks like and how we provide support through that cascading logic model that goes from the state level and moves all the way down to school level implementation. It starts with a Colorado state management team And it provides support directly to those COMTSS regional coordinators through a specialist that's assigned to every one of those regions. In turn, the COMTSS regional coordinator provides technical assistance directly to district coordinators through technical assistance structures. And in turn, the district coordinators provide technical assistance to each partner school through their school leads. I also wanted to show you a map of Colorado with each partner district listed along with their funding streams. Blue represents those that receive funding from SPDIG and red from other resources we have in Colorado. The two regions we are supporting are highlighted, as well as are located in the southwest part of our state, and they include the San Juan and San Luis Valley areas. Now I'm going to hand it off to Erin, who's going to be talking about the School Fidelity Tool.
Thank you so much, Lynn. Now that you've been introduced to Colorado multi-tiered system of supports, we'd like to turn our attention to the School Fidelity Tool, a self-assessment used by school implementation teams to measure the extent to which school personnel are applying features of COMTSS. The School Fidelity Tool is intended to act as a companion to the school implementation guide, as both were created to complement one another. The School Fidelity Tool is organized by the 5 components of COMTSS and integrates other frameworks, including Universal Design for Learning, positive behavioral interventions and supports, and it is designed to provide descriptions of discrete elements that would be in place when achieving full implementation. We solicited feedback from stakeholders who participated in the 2016 to 2021 COMTSS grant on the tools that they used and suggestions to make the tools better. Specifically, stakeholders suggested a need for a tool to measure fidelity of implementation of COMTSS at the school level. Of note, stakeholders identified the need for a tool over an assessment and emphasized that they didn't want the tool to feel evaluative. Additionally, we considered survey data from superintendents across Colorado that was collected while schools were fully remote due to COVID closures. There was a great identified need to integrate mental health and social emotional wellness. Our team could not find a validated tool that measured fidelity of academic, social, emotional, and behavioral systems implementation at the school level. So we created our own School Fidelity Tool. The School Fidelity Tool was influenced by field-tested tools used during the previous SPDIG, including the school-level response to intervention implementation rubric and the MTSS Building Leadership Team self-assessment. Research-based tools influenced the School Fidelity Tool, including the Tiered Fidelity Inventory and Interconnected Systems Framework. Finally, feedback from national advisors and stakeholders influenced the development of the School Fidelity Tool. Items on the School Fidelity Tool are based on a Likert scale based upon the degree to which each item is in place. A score of 0 is not yet in place. A score of 1 is partially in place. A score of 2 is fully in place. Once a school achieves 70% of the total score from the School Fidelity Tool, COMTSS is considered to be fully implemented. Schools are recommended to take the School Fidelity Tool each year to celebrate growth, identify areas for continuous improvement, and to inform action planning. Additionally, COMTSS district leadership teams can use the information gathered from their school teams to prioritize content for high-quality professional learning that matches growth areas identified in the School Fidelity Tool, and to differentiate learning opportunities to create alignment across their system. After we developed the school fidelity tool, it was piloted in 8 schools across Colorado. The table on the screen shows the number and type of schools that participated in the pilot. 3 elementary schools, 2 middle schools, 2 high schools, and 1 kindergarten through 12th grade school participated. This table shows the number of schools in the pilot by years of COMTSS implementation. 2 schools in the pilot had not implemented COMTSS. 2 schools had implemented COMTSS for 1 to 2 years, and 4 schools had 5 or more years of COMTSS implementation. For each pilot administration, a COMTSS specialist from the Office of Learning Supports at the Colorado Department of Education trained site-based district coordinators on school fidelity tool administration. The district coordinator facilitated the administration of the school fidelity tool using a standard protocol, and the administration occurred on site, with the respondents being the full school implementation team. During pilot administration, each item was read out loud by a member of the school team. In some cases, one person read each item, and in other cases, the team took turns reading items out loud. After each item was read, team members voted on a response based on their consensus procedure. For example, holding up a fist, 1 or 2 fingers. The response number selected was based on majority rule as long as 60% at least were in agreement. If this was not the case, a discussion was had and a revote was taken until there was at least 60% agreement. Pilot data were collected using SurveyMonkey. After administration, participants provided feedback to us on the strengths and challenges of the school fidelity tool, as well as specific areas of the school fidelity tool that could be improved. At the conclusion of pilot testing, an outside evaluator analyzed both the raw data as well as the feedback, looking for patterns and themes pertaining to individual items, as well as the general experience. We used the feedback, including item, scoring, and narrative feedback, to refine the next version of the tool. For example, we changed the score of 0 from not in place to not yet in place. Additionally, we used the feedback to determine what would be hyperlinked, which you will see in the next section. This final version, refined through the pilot process, will be used by all participating COMTSS grant schools during the 2022 to 2023 school year. And now I'll turn it over to Milcah Hawk.
Thank you so much, Erin, for explaining the development and the pilot of the school fidelity tool. And I now get the best part. Are you ready? Here it is, the school fidelity tool. You can see that the tool itself is 3 pages long with 45 items. The 5 essential components of COMTSS are used as the organizational structure for the tool. This slide is showing our 5 components with logos. And as Lynne had stated, the school level practice profiles for each COMTSS component were the basis for developing the items within the tool to further define standards for what COMTSS looks like in practice at the school level. The 3 frameworks: universal design for learning, positive behavior interventions and supports, and response to intervention, are all embedded within all the 5 components of COMTSS. The following slides will be showing sample items from the school fidelity tool. We selected certain items to share with you today to highlight how the 3 frameworks are represented within the items. Now let's look at the examples of the items within each of the 5 components. The first component is team-driven shared leadership. Here is one of the items within this component. On each slide, there will be a table with the item number, followed by the item itself. CSIT stands for the COMTSS School Implementation Teams, which we have named as the team responsible for implementation of most items. Notice communication plan is a link that leads to more information. You will see other linked words in the following selected items, followed by the scoring, where the item 2 represents in place, 1 represents partially in place, and 0 represents not yet in place, as Erin had reviewed before. Team-driven shared leadership sample item 7 is a description of how communication planning is inclusive of the school community, of administrators, students, families, in order to promote academic, social, emotional, and behavioral development. And this aligns with PBIS and UDL as a school-wide initiative. Database problem solving and decision-making sample items are about staff, students, and families together problem solving to increase the academic, social, emotional, and behavioral outcomes for students. So problem solving with both assessment and non-assessment data, which are linked. The non-assessment data in Colorado is, for example, observations, attendance, focus groups, surveys, in order to support decision makers to examine and respond to the cultural and systemic trends more proactively. The continuous improvement cycle is also critical in these items to improve quality, equity, and accessibility of curriculum, instruction, interventions, and the learning environment for all students. The family, school, and community partnerships component is one of the most important items to call out in the School Fidelity Tool because of the importance of including family and student voice in building shared leadership throughout the school. These comprehensive assessment system items make clear that school climate, culture, and the learning environment are key to all student success. And because we are so proud of item number 31, I'm going to read that one out loud. The CSIT identifies non-assessment measures targeting school climate, culture, and environment, for example, staff, student, and family surveys or focus groups, to inform and support equitable decision-making practices across student groups. The importance of these items is to be sure academic, social, emotional, and behavioral development is embedded within all assessment practices across the tiers. Note in this item, internalizing and externalizing behaviors are in blue because internalizing is often overlooked, particularly at the tier 1 level. And externalizing behaviors, when intervened early, can change a child's trajectory over time. This importance of these items are related to how well our response to intervention practices are in place. The layer continuum sample items demonstrate how UDL and high leverage practices and PBIS and response to intervention are implemented at tier 1 level, which is referred to as best first instruction in Colorado. So let's talk about best first instruction. So best first instruction implementation in Colorado requires educators to build meaningful relationships with all students, address individual needs, create relevancy by allowing students to see themselves in their learning, and provide opportunities for exploration and expression. The educator also utilizes instructional materials and strategies that honors the diversity of their classroom. So altogether, these selected items were created with intentionality using UDL, PBIS, and RTI frameworks, as well as high leverage practices to increase equitable access to Tier 1 to meet students' academic, social, emotional, and behavioral development. So continuing with layer continuum of supports, these items are some of our best work, everyone. So the role of the CSIT is to provide training and coaching to adult learners that better supports the effective implementation of best first instruction, ensures there is equitable access for all students, ultimately meeting their academic, social, emotional, and behavioral outcomes. So let's look at item 43. So item 43 is directly tied to PBIS. CSIT develops and uses a tiered discipline system that is proactive, instructional, and restorative. For example, the 4-to-1 positive redirects using effective de-escalation strategies, processes to restore students back to their learning environment. It's important to point out restorative, a step often forgotten in schools, and need to recall those restorative practices. I'll end with 45 because this item is in response to not only our July 2020 survey data from superintendents across Colorado, but a nationwide crisis for our youth and staff regarding wellness and mental health, as Erin had pointed out earlier in the presentation. CSIT ensures all staff receive annual training with the current safety and crisis plans, including how to recognize and respond to early symptoms of mental health challenges and everyday strategies for promoting mental health in themselves and their students. And for you all watching this presentation, be sure to personalize your learning and do something for yourself today. Our next steps. So our next steps, the COMTSS school implementation teams will use the School Fidelity Tool annually as part of the COMTSS implementation beginning in the fall. Also, our Office of Learning Supports, in conjunction with the state implementation and scaling up of evidence-based practices, SISIP, will support us in validating our tool. We are so excited about this. And by fall of 2022, all Colorado schools will be able to access the School Fidelity Tool and training module on our COMTSS website. So for more information or questions, and you want to reach out to us, please email us at comtss@cde.state.co.us. Thank you so much for joining us for this presentation. Thank you, Erin and Lynne.